This is Gemara Avodah Zarah Daf Samoch Gimel. We're holding the very bottom of Samoch Beis and Beis. And we just finished bringing a raya from a case in which one gave the payment of the Esnan. Baal Leha, someone is over the Avera, he's mizana with a woman, and then he gives her the payment. Says the Gemara, the Esnan would be mutter. Why is the Esnan mutter? Explains the Gemara, because it was given after the Avera was done. Now that we have the raya from that brisa, which was the raya moving back to our case, in the case of Peiros Shemitah, that the Damav will not have the same Isser as the Peiros. Well, in this particular type of exchange, obviously in general, the Kedusha Shvius does transfer, but if it's done in a similar mannerism, then it will not. But now, says the Gemara in the last line of Samach Beis Ben Beis, let's go a little bit deeper into the brisa. What do we just say? We just said that in the prior case of Esnan, if he pays her for the Maisa's Nos, and then he's Ba'alel, said the Gemara that it's going to be Aser. Asks the Gemara, Ask the Gemara, we said it's going to be Mutter. That's the Kasha. Why is it going to be mutter? Why don't we say that once he gives it to her afterwards, the halacha should be that it should get the din of the esnan? Meaning this is really the problem that we all have, is that why in the world in this case it's a clear esnan? What's the difference? The animal's given right before, the animal's given right afterwards. Let it be chalin and islam afreya. As Rashi says, why did he give her this animal? So why does it not get a din of esnan? So Amar you know why? The case is that he gave the animal, and right away she went and she brought it as a carbon, and only afterwards was she over the Isser. So at the moment that she brought the carbon, she didn't yet do the Isser. The moment she did the Isser, the animal's no longer around. Ask the Gemara, whoa, hey chitam. Now we have to get involved in the nitty-gritties of how the kinyan works. Says the Gemara. If he said to her, if he said to her, you should be cleaning the animal right now, and then she went and she brought us a carbon, and then they had the Avera, Pshita the Shari. Why? Because the animal is no longer around at the time they did the Avera. They gave her a matana. He said, be kind of this now, and whatever, we'll do a Ma'is Avera. So there's a straight up kinyan. So what's the chiddush? But if he didn't tell her that she could have a kinyan right now, how could she go and bring the animal as a carbon? It's not hers, Bechlal. Says, mean you're a shus. Afkal, anytime you bring something as a carbon, it has to be bereshusai. And if over here she never actually has a kinyan on the item, because she only got a contingent if she does the Ma'is Avera, how is she allowed to bring it as a carbon? Says the Gemara, you're right, a new way of explaining. Ella, the case is, the Amrli said to her, Lahavi Gabech, it should be by you Achasbiya. V'mitzrach lech kini me'achshav. And if you need it, you can be cutting it right now. And therefore, that's why it could both be brought as a carbon, but at the same time there is a chiddush, because the Maisa, he did link the Maisa Avera with the animal, but he did allow her to have a kinyan right now. That's going to be the chiddush. Continues the Gemara, based on the way Rav Elazar just explained, that we're talking about a case in which she went and she was makdish the animal, makar of the animal, I should say, before they did the Avera. So ask Rav Aishia, Kadma Vikdishasai Mahu. If she went and she said that this animal is Kadosh to the Mizbeach before the Avera, but she didn't actually bring it as a carbon, what's the halacha? Do we say the first side is Pasha, keep them Ramar? Amiros, as we've seen so many times, that how do you give something to Hektish with Mira Mira? How do you make something Kadosh by saying it should be Kadosh? And therefore, what? So too over here, Kimanda Kriviyasai Dami. It's as if it's given to Hektish, and therefore it's pashit that it should be a good carbon. Oidoma Hashtam Yahakai. Lamaisa, the animal is sitting in front of us, and therefore, maybe when they subsequently do the Aveira, the animal should get this stigma of being an Esnan, and you cannot subsequently bring it as a carbon. So says the Gemara, let's answer this from Rav Eliezer himself. Rav Eliezer, 4 lines from the wide line, Rav Eliezer said that what's the Echatimsa that he created? Shekodman what? Not Shekodma Vikti Shasai. Not Shekodma, and she said it should be Kadosh. No. Shekodma, and she brought as a carbon. So Davka Grivasai. Avalekti Shasai Loi. Says the Gemara, Shkayach, this is our kasha. Rav Eliezer Gufei Kami Violet. This is what we're asking. What's halacha? Mivsha Bashta Rav Eliezer the Krivasai. The shaila is, should we say Rav Eliezer talking about Tigrasa Davka Avalekti Shasai? Teisim Shasbiya. Tomakrasa B'shita Lei Vikti Shasai Misafka. Maybe that's Gufei. Safek. Says the Gemara, Teiku to Gavaltik Kasha. We have to wait for Eliyahu Navi for this one. On the second wide line continues the Gemara. If someone did the Aveira and only gave her the Esnan afterwards, the halacha is the Esnan is mutter. Says the Gemara, let's understand this case. V'reminu. Straight up stira. Here we see that even if you gave her the payment, even if the Esnan, the animal, the payment for Zunos is given up to 3 years later, says the Gemara, it should still be aser. So Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar Rav Chisda Lo Kasha Hadamar is Baili Li Bitlezeh Hadamar Lo Baili Bitle Stam. The case is going to be, what do they say at the time of the Ma'isa Aveira? If he said to her, have Zunos with me for this animal, then it's going to be aser. If he said animal stam, it's going to be mutter. Says, whoa. What's the difference? She never did a kinyan on it. Explains the Gemara. We're talking about Bezaina, but it's Chavim. We're talking about a Zaina who's a guy. She's not going to be Mashicha. And therefore, the fact that she does her end, she acquiesces to the Maisa Avera, that itself makes the animal considered to be hers. And that's why the animal will be Aser. The animal's in her chatzar. But in the flip case, says the Gemara, if the animal's in her chatzar, and we're talking about a case where he had zinos, and then he gives her the animal, she already is kainet. So how in such a case would we be able to say that the animal is a mutter? The case is with the animals and apoitiki. Damar law. Apoitiki means it's designated as payment for a certain chayf. And he says to her, if you pay up, then great. And if not, this will be the way that you'll receive payment is from this animal. Therefore, it's not considered to be hers. Says the Gemara, Masiv Rav Sheshes, a kasha that really brings us back to the previous daf. So it says to his workers, his drivers, go and eat with this dinner, to his stupid dinner. And he does not have to be worried that what, as we turn over to Samach Gimel and Beis, Loi Misham Shvies, V'loi Misham Meiser, V'loi Misham Yayin Esech. And this opens up the Pandora's box in businesses, in corporations, buying food for their employees, etc. Says the Gemara, since he's not paying for the food and drink himself, he does not have to be worried what the workers are going to buy. 1 second, maybe they're going to go and buy Yayin Esech, and I, the boss, consider to have buying it for them because I'm giving them the cash. Says the Gemara, no. If you give them money and you say, go do your thing, then it's going to be fine. But in the second line, go and eat. And I'll pay. To shtuvani bere, drink and I'll pay. Then chayshish misham shvius, chayshish misham, umisham meister misham yayin nesach. Then we are, yes, concerned. And this, again, very relevant. Tell a worker, go out and eat, and I'll pay the tab. So they went to eat tarfis, and drank a cup of wine, and you pay for it. That's called you are benefiting from yayin esech. Again, there are nuances, but in this simple case, and if not. So says the Gemara, Alma ki kapara demei iser kapara. Says the Gemara, so what do we see? We see that when you pay for the Shemitah, he's considered to have paid with iser. Hachanami. So now let's come back to our case. Ki kapara demei iser kapara. Should be the same thing in our case when they paid when those by Rav Yanai and Samach Bezim Beis paid up their chov after the Shemitah items already eaten, should be considered as if you're utilizing the Shemitah produce. Says the Gemara, we're talking about a case of a storekeeper who regularly extends credit to mishtabed lei, and therefore the employer's land becomes mishabed to him. The kivan de orchel akufe, because it's normal for him to give them on credit. Therefore, kanulei dinar gabe, he requires the right to it. So again, this really brings us into the nuances of how the kinyan is being made. Motor. If it would be mutter, if they don't normally pay on credit, so why don't we say Cash number one. Number two, is not always a classical shibud automatically. So there's automatically a kinyan. So answers the Gemara, you're right. Ella Rava, or smack in the middle of some Gimel and base. First word line is Midin Arev, comes like Rav and he explains Loishanu Makifai, Veloishana Shein Makifai. You're right, the chiluk is not whether he usually extended them on credit or not. Avagav de mishtabelei. Shema kiva avagav mishtabelei. Kivan de loy miyached. Shibude loy misar. Since he did not designate the produce for a specific item, therefore, loy misar, the produce would not become asar. And that's the reason why by Rav Yanai, the din will be different. Elahacha says, the Gemara, my chayshim shvies. Now the whole cookie crumbles. If you never designated Shibudei, so why are we chash from Shemitah? Shvidei hacha. Amar Papa can shake them like dinner. The case is in which you paid a dinner before you sent the workers, because you paid for it prior. Therefore, it's considered an exchange for the produce. Rav Yanai says, no, you didn't pay in advance. Amar Rav Kahana says Rav Kahana. Amrita l'shmaita kamed Rav Zin min Ardai. Amar Ali. It's not actually paying. It's I'll calculate because you already paid buyer. You're right, change the word in the brisa. Poor took the food in his own hands and gave it to his workers. That's going to be the case that we are discussing. Let's stop over here and we'll continue discussing Shitas Rav Ashi in the next year. Siyata Dishmai.